Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Quote of the day: You will face many defeats in life, but never let yourself be defeated. Maya Angelou. Types of disaster by Dr. ALISHBA RASOOL, PGR Community Medicine, under the supervision of Professor Dr. Saira Afzal. Learning outlines: Introduction to disasters, hazards, types of disasters and hazards, comparison between a disaster and a hazard, characteristics and impact of disasters, explanation of types of disaster, recent updates, and MCQs. Learning objective: At the end of the presentation, participants would be able to describe the difference between a desert and a hazard, characteristics and types of disasters and their impacts. Disaster: A serious disruption of the functioning of society which poses a significant widespread threat to human life, health, property, or the environment, whether arising from accident, nature, or human activity, whether developing suddenly or as the result of long-term processes, but excluding armed conflict. Any occurrence that causes damage, ecological disruption, loss of human life, deterioration of health and health services on a scale sufficient to warrant an extraordinary response from outside the affected community or area. WHO. An occurrence either natural or man-made that causes human suffering and creates human needs that victims cannot alleviate without assistance. American Red Cross. What is a hazard? A threat, whether natural or human, that has a potential to cause loss of life, injury, property, damage, socio-economic disruption, or environmental degradation. Hazard may not always bring disaster, but if not properly handled or well prepared, they can bring big disasters. It remains as threat so long it doesn't bring disaster. Explanation of disaster, functions of hazards and vulnerability. If vulnerables are reduced, then disaster can be minimized from hazards. What are risks, dangers involved? Risk is a function of hazards into vulnerability into exposure. High risk results to disaster. As you can see from the diagram, risk is common in vulnerability, hazard, and exposure. Vulnerability, the prosperity of the propensity of things to be damaged by a hazard. Exposure to a hazard, high or low, capacity to cope, high or low. What makes communities and environments more vulnerable? 1. Poverty. 2. Population explosion. 3. Lack of skills in social services. 4. A fragile community. 5. Weak economy. 6. Proper essentials, infrastructures, and materials. Hazard: phenomena or situation which has the potential to cause disruption or damage to people, their property, their services, and their environment. Disaster: serious disruption of functioning of society causing widespread human, material, or environmental losses which exceeds the ability of the affected people to cope using their own resources. An event either man-made or natural, sudden or progressive, causing widespread human, material, or environmental losses. Vulnerability is a condition or sets of conditions that reduces people's ability to prepare for, withstand, or respond to a hazard. Extent to which an element is likely to be damaged or disrupted by a hazard. Ability or resilience of a society to withstand a disaster. Capacity, those positive conditions or abilities which increase a community's ability to deal with hazards. Types of hazards. Hazards may be of two types: slow, yani taking time; onset, rapid, sudden outbreak. Floods, drought, climatic, global warming, cyclones, storms, etc. Earthquakes, landslide, volcano, tsunami, industrial accidents, etc. Chemical and dust hazards. Cleaning products, pesticides, asbestos, etc. Biological hazards, mold, insects, pests, communicable diseases. Work organization hazards, things that cause stress. Ergonomic hazards, repetition, lifting, awkward posture. Physical hazards, noise, temperature extremes, radiation. Safety hazards, slips, trips and falls, faulty equipment. Hazard versus disaster, a dangerous situation that poses a threat to human life. An event that completely causes damage to human life and property. Has less critical consequences, has more critical consequences, and more catastrophic. Takes its full shape after a series of events which might have led it to happen. Often happens in a short time, causing more severe effects. Death characteristics: predictability, controllability, speed of onset, length of Warning, duration of impact, scope and intensity of impact. Disaster characteristics. Disasters are isolated events, predictability and controllability. Speed of onset, length of forewarning or lead time available. Time of occurrence, scale of disaster, intensity, scale, duration, and spatial extension. Disasters are function of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. Hazard leads to a disaster, vulnerability due to disaster. Types of disaster, natural and man-made or technological disasters, geophysical, earthquake and tsunamis, landslide, hydrological, avalanche and flood, climatological, droughts, extreme heat wave, meteorological, cyclones, storms, damaging winds, biological, disease, epidemic, insects, animal plagues, agricultural, pests and diseases, famine, conflicts, industrial accidents, transport accidents, nuclear weapons, nuclear power plants, nuclear blasts, chemical threats, hazardous materials and explosions, threats by extremist groups. Based on the timing classified as immediate, without warning and unpredictable, earthquakes, explosion, etc., rapid with little warning and relatively predictability. Factors affecting disasters: age, immunization status, degree of mobility, emotional stability. Environmental factors: physical factors, chemical factors, biological factors, social factors, psychological factors. Impacts and effects of disaster: deaths and disabilities, psychological problems, increase of communicable diseases, food shortage and shortage of drugs and medical supplies, infrastructure loss, impacts on critical infrastructure, water supply, communication, transportation, power supplies, environmental and ecosystem disruptions, social and economic losses and disruption of businesses. Mental health impact of disaster: post-traumatic stress disorder, stage 1, adrenergic surge, stage 2, helplessness and loss of self-control, stage 3, despondency and demoralization. Children, developmental age is more important. Preschoolers, increase arousal, fear. School-age children, reckless, psychosomatic signs. Adolescents, some partake in rescue and recovery, regression and withdrawal possible. Elderly, increased risk of physical injury than mental. Mental health responses to disaster and emergency: vulnerability, blaming, insomnia, mumps, MIPS, irritability, distraction, scapegoating, anger at government, demoralization, loss of faith. Mental disorders, anxiety, depression, PTSD, complex grief, resilience, health risk behavior, smoking, alcohol, over dedication, limit use of social networks. Care of mental health: psychiatric care at district level, primary health care, primary health, psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses, and multidisciplinary team, community led workers, teachers, NGOs, and people in basic mental health methods. Public health issues after a disaster: assessment of health and medical care delivery, rapid assessment of community health medical needs, delivery of health and medical care, pharmaceutical supply, potable water, safe food and sanitation and hygiene, injury and illness surveillance, vector control, solid waste, hazardous material registry, mental health, sheltering and housing, mass congregation, handling of the disease, staffing, rumor control, public service announcements, media. Classification of a disaster: natural disasters, meteorological and climate, topographical and hydrological, environmental and biological, man-made disasters, technological and industrial accidents, human management failure, human conflicts and warfare. Natural disasters versus man-made disasters. Natural disasters are caused by natural forces. Man-made disasters are caused by the activities of men. Examples are tsunamis, floods, landslides, hurricanes, wildfires, frosts, volcanic eruptions, etc. Hazardous material spills, explosion, chemical or biological attacks, etc. Steps can be taken to minimize the effects, can be avoided with careful planning and prevention methods. Natural disaster can cause loss of life or property damage and typically leave some economic damage in its wake, the severity of which depends on the affected population's resilience or ability to recover. Natural disaster: meteorological disaster, flood, tsunami, cyclone, hurricane, typhoon, snowstorm, blizzard, hailstorm. Topographical disasters: earthquake, volcanic eruption, landslides and avalanche, asteroids, limnic eruptions. Environmental disasters: global warming, wildfire, epidemic, pandemic, virus and diseases, ozone depletion, UVB radiation, solar flare, asteroids and comets, locust attack. Types of natural disasters: tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, tsunamis, winter storms, wildfires, avalanche, landslides, droughts, and cyclones. Rotating funnel shaped clouds from powerful thunderstorm, winds up to 300 mph, capable of producing major damage. More occur in the United States than anywhere else in the world. They occur in every state in America. Effects of tornadoes in Alabama. Hurricane: massive severe storms occurring in the tropics, winds greater than 75 mph, clouds and winds spin around the eye, produce heavy rains, high winds, large waves, and spin off tornadoes. Earthquake. An earthquake, also known as a quake, tremor, or trembler, is the result of a sudden release of energy in the Earth's crust that creates seismic waves. Worst earthquake in Pakistan, 2005 Kashmir earthquake, a 7.6 Richter scale quake struck the Kashmir region on the India-Pakistan border and the parts of the northwestern Pakistan on 8th October. According to the official figures, at least 73,000 people were killed and more than 3.3 million made homeless. Work even continues today to rebuild damaged infrastructure. Margalla Tower, Islamabad. Cyclone is a system of winds rotating inwards to an area of low barometric pressure with an anti-clockwise northern hemisphere or clockwise southern hemisphere circulation depression. Volcanoes, more than 500 active volcanoes in the world, over half in the Ring of Fire. Pressure builds below the Earth's surface, producing eruptions of lava, rock, and volcanic gases. Tsunamis formed as a result of earthquake, volcanoes, or landslide under the ocean. Waves grow taller as they reach the coast. 4 out of 5 occur in the Ring of Fire. Over 200,000 people killed in the 1226-5 Indian Ocean tsunami. Effects of tsunami. The Ring of Fire is a region around much of the rim of the Pacific Ocean where many volcanic eruptions and earthquakes occur. The Ring of Fire is a horseshoe-shaped belt about 40,000 kilometers long and up to about 500 kilometers wide. Winter storms may include snow, ice storms, sleet, freezing rain, extremely cold temperatures. Most deaths occur in automobiles. Storms may cause widespread power outages. Wildfires occur in forest, grasslands, and wooded areas. Most common causes lightning and human accidents burn more than 4 million acres in the US each year. Drought occurs when a region doesn't receive enough rainfall, which leads to a severe deficiency in the water supply. When this situation persists over an extended period, it changes the ecosystem and destroys the agriculture of the region. The Horn of Africa witnessed the worst drought in 60 years in 2011, leaving more than 12.4 million people with limited to no food supply. Due to its impact, a drought has to be included in the list of natural disasters. Worst drought in Pakistan. The drought of 1998-2002 is considered worst in the 50 years in Pakistan. The drought started in 1997 as El Nino developed, but the drought gained intensity in 1998 and reached its peak in 2000 till 2001 and thus gradually weakened in 2002. The extreme drought also affected much of India and Afghanistan. The World Bank warned that the drought would inevitably hit economic growth of Pakistan. Thus, it donated several $100 million to help Pakistan through its worsening drought. Worst drought in Pakistan. Floods results from heavy rains may involve rivers overflowing, storms, surge, ocean waves, and dams or levees breaking. Most common natural hazards, flash floods that happen very fast. Floods in Pakistan 2022. On 25 August, Pakistan declared a state of emergency because of the flooding. The flooding was the world's deadliest flood since the 2020 South Asian floods and described as the worst in the country's history. It was also regarded as one of the world's costliest natural disasters of all time. Between June and August 2022, torrential rains and a combination of riverine, urban, and flash flooding led to an unprecedented disaster in Pakistan. Why Pakistan is drowning? Pakistan's flooding is a combination of corruption, mismanagement, and climate change. Pakistan is currently experiencing one of the worst environmental disasters in the world. One third of the country is underwater. Over 1325 people have died and 33 million have been impacted. The latest statistics show that over 1,600 have been injured, 325,000 homes destroyed, 735,000 livestock lost, and 2 million acres of crops damaged. Numbers which are likely to increase according to a rough assessment by the Atlantic Council, Uzair Yunus, and economist Amar Khan. The direct damage to roads, home, livestock, and crops is over 3 billion, which is an astronomical amount for a developing country like Pakistan. Decadal average annual number of deaths from disasters. Disasters include all geographical, meteorological, and climate events, including earthquake, volcanic activity, landslides, drought, wildfires, storms, and flooding. Decadal figures are measured as the annual average over the subsequent 10-year period. Man-made disaster is a disaster resulting from human intent, negligence, or error. Man-made disasters can be both intentional and unintentional. It results the huge loss of life and property. It further affects a person's mental, physical, and social well-being. Man-made disasters, management failure, transport failure, public place failure, stampede fire, chemical spills, radioactive spills, warfare, human conflicts, riots, terrorism, internal conflict, civil unrest, biological warfare. Man-made disaster, human-induced, train accident, aviation accident, shipwreck, traffic collision, structural collapse, bridge collapse, wildfires, space accident, terrorist attack, war, radiation emergencies, pandemics, human stampedes, bioterrorism, sports stadium disaster, riots, civil disorder, man-made disaster, biological, chemical, nuclear, radiological explosion. Biological threats. A biological attack is a release of germs or other biological substances. Many agents must be inhaled, enter through a cut in the skin, or be eaten to make you sick. Some biological agents can cause contagious diseases, others do not. Anthrax virus, Ebola virus. Chemical attack is a deliberate release of toxic gas, liquid or solid that can poison people and the environment. Chemical spills can also wreak havoc on the environment. Please mute your mic. Nuclear threats. Nuclear threat can occur recently in Japan. A mobile nuclear accident, radiation threat. It is not a clear blast. The force of explosion and radioactive contamination will be more localized. Some other examples of man-made disasters: Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic blast, open oil spills in Gulf of Mexico. A stampede is an act of mass impulse among a herd of animals or a crowd of people in which the herd collectively begins running with no clear direction. Oil spill is the release of a liquid petroleum hydrocarbon into the environment, especially marine areas, due to human activity, and is a form of pollution. Institutional model for disaster risk management in Pakistan: National Disaster Management Commission, National Disaster Management Authority, Provincial Disaster Management Authorities, District Disaster Management Authorities, local authorities. Pakistan National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA. Recent updates: Words into Action Guidelines, engaging for resilience in support of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. In summary, the VIA guidelines are pragmatic roadmaps to programming and effective implementation strategy. This is facilitated by promoting a good understanding of the main issues, obstacles, solution finding strategies, resourcing, and aspects of efficient planning. The guidelines can be valuable resources for national and local capacity building through workshops and training in academic and professional settings. They can also serve as a reference for policy and technical discussions. Climate change fueled natural disasters and chronic kidney disease, a call for action. People with kidney disease are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of natural disaster and extreme weather events. As climate change is increasing the frequency and severity of these events, a robust response is needed to improve disaster preparedness and increase the resilience of these patients. The impact of earthquakes on public health, a narrative review of the infectious diseases in the post-disaster period, aiming to disaster risk reduction. Earthquakes are among the most impressive natural phenomena with very high potential to set off a chain of effects that significantly affects public health through casualties and injuries. Related disorders are attributed not only to strong ground motion and post-seismic phenomena, but also to secondary effects comprising mainly landslides and tsunami, among others. All these can create harsh conditions. The present study comprises an extensive narrative review of the existing literature on the earthquake-triggered infectious disease recorded worldwide, along with their symptoms and causative agents. Respiratory, gastrointestinal, vector-borne diseases, as well as wound and skin infections are mainly recorded among the earthquake-affected population. Measures for effectively preventing earthquake-triggered infectious diseases are also proposed. One of the widely proposed measures is the establishment of a proper disease surveillance system in order to immediately and effectively identify the pre- and post-disaster occurrence of infectious diseases. This approach significantly contributes to disease trends monitoring, validation of early warning, and support of the emergency response and recovery actions. MCQs. The management committee of the industry XYZ are very much concerned about the safety of their worker because of the presence of heavy working machinery and implementation of emergency measures in case of hazardous situation which can arise when there is a threat of natural calamity. B, when there's a threat to consequences of the disaster, when there is threat to property and lives from calamities, when there is threat to infrastructure. E, when there is mismanagement. Anyone? Anyone?
C.
Yes, yes, C is the right answer. A natural disaster is a major adverse event resulting from natural processes of the earth when the usual measures to be taken to prevent this damage were not able to prevent their emergence or were not be able to be taken. Which one of the following is not a natural disaster? A, volcanic eruption, B, flood, C, blowout, D, tsunami, E, cyclone.
C. C.
Yes, yes, is the right answer. Seismic waves are frequently used to search for oil and natural gas deep below the Earth's surface. These waves of energy move through the Earth just as sound waves through air. Sometimes seismic waves can cause disaster named as A. Cyclone, B. Typhoon, C. Tsunami, D. Hurricane, E. Wildfire.
C.
A.
Yes, C is the right answer. The Ring of Fire is a region where many volcanic eruptions and earthquakes occur. The Ring of Fire is a horseshoe-shaped belt about 40,000 kilometers long and up to about 500 kilometers wide. Which option refers to as Ring of Fire? A. Area encircling the Pacific Ocean named as Circum-Pacific Belt. Area encircling by a belt of volcanoes in Mid-Atlantic Ocean. Area encircling by the belt of volcanoes of the Mid-Continental region. Area encircling by the belt of volcanoes of the Mid-Indus Ocean. Area encircling by the belt of volcanoes and mountains.
Alpha.
Yes, A is the right answer. A threat has a potential to cause loss of life, injury, property damage, socio-economic disruption, environmental degradation. Among which of the following hazards and disasters are classified? A. Culture, social. B. Natural and man-made. C. Chemical and physical. D. Human and physical. E. Biological and physical.
Uh, C. D.
C.
Yes, B is the right answer. A team of geologists has visited the area XYZ and the task allocated to them is to report the long climatic changes on the environment. Which of the following is not an example of a rapid onset disaster? A. Earthquake. B. Drought. C. Cyclone. D. Tsunami. E. Car crash.
B.
Yes, B is the right answer. A weather forecast team in an area XYZ has declared emergency and warned people to evacuate the affected area as soon as possible. Which natural disaster can produce the fastest winds on Earth? A. Cyclone. B. Hurricane. C. Tornado. D. Snowstorm. E. Hailstorm.
C.
Yes, C is the right answer. Disaster is a serious problem occurring over a short or long period of time that causes widespread human, material, economic, or environmental loss of the affected community. One could have the information on previous disaster, but it lacks the respect of A. Number of deaths, B. Number of injured, C. Physical damage, D. Psychological damage, E. Damage to infrastructure.
D.
Yes,
D.
D is the right answer. Drought is when a region doesn't receive enough rainfall, which leads to severe deficiency in the water supply. When this situation persists over the extended period, it changes the ecosystem and destroys the agriculture of the region. Usually, where do drought occurs? A. In cold climates, B. In dry climates, C. In arid climates, D. In any climate, E. In tropical climates.
B.
B.
Yes, B. D
C.
is the right answer. In 2005, Kashmir earthquake occurred and mainly affected Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and surrounding region. It is considered the deadliest earthquake to hit South Asia. In post-disaster phase of this earthquake, the major problem was extreme condition of weather, B. Disruption of community service, C. Poor management of food distribution, D. Spread of communicable diseases, E. Waterborne diseases.
Delta.
D.
Yes, D is the
A.
right answer. D is the right answer. This is the key. Thank you, and this is the link of our YouTube channel.
Thank you very much, Dr. ALISHBA. Very nice presentation, and especially how you have covered the disaster from a very simplistic definitions and what are the important parameters to a very complex thing, how to do disaster management. That was the wonderful thing that you have covered today. So how to deal with the humans, materials, economy, environmental impacts, especially in the context of Pakistan, where the floods are so frequent and droughts in many areas are due to major failures of government, political, different scenarios, and still we are facing many things that are disasters of human origin. And you have very well covered also the disasters that are naturally there. So you all have also given us the emergency events in different phases like mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So it is a very well elaborated presentation where the types of disasters, disaster management, and the phases of disasters, and then the responsibilities of the system, including the government systems, the political systems, the local systems, and even as a stakeholder, each and every person is responsible for controlling, preventing these disasters, for preparedness, and for early response, and then later on rehabilitation and recovery. As in community medicine department, our faculty members, they are continuously being involved in disaster management, in earthquakes, in floods, and now they are also involved in international disaster management teams working in Syria and Turkey. So this is a very good presentation with the real insight into the things. Very well done, Alishba. Keep it up, and Allah Hafiz, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Allah Hafiz.